Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Wellbeing Live, hosted by the Mental Health Center of Denver and presented by Cigna. Wellbeing Live is a series of short virtual talks, classes, and workshops brought to you by our experts from across the organization on topics related to well-being, meant to help you improve your well-being and the well-being of the people around you. Today, we're very excited to be joined by our personal financial services team, who will talk to us about one of the core elements of how we help people improve their well-being at the Mental Health Center of Denver. And so we'll get into that conversation soon. Before we get started, this is usually where we remind everyone that to submit a question in the Q&A chat. And no live event is complete without a little tech hiccup. And today, our tech hiccup is that the Q&A function has disappeared from Teams Live. So what we're going to do is, as you have questions, as you can see on the screen right now, on our website, mhcd.org/well-being-live, there's a form for you to submit questions. So please feel free to go to that site and submit questions as you have them. I think I have lots of questions already for our presenters, and I imagine that everyone else will as well. So with that, I'll invite our personal financial services team to get started. And so I'll introduce Tabitha Santana.
Hi, I'm Tabitha Santana. I'm the project manager for Personal Financial Services, which is the representative payship department at MHCD. We manage Social Security benefits for the people we serve in a way that best meets their needs while adhering to SSA guidelines for organizational payees. Once MHCD is designated payee for a person we serve, we take on the burden of making monthly payments for things like rent and bills, as well as reporting required information to the Social Security Administration. This allows PFS participants to focus on their mental health treatment and other life decisions. There's a lot of reasons why someone would want or need a payee to manage their Social Security benefits, but mostly people come to us when they're overwhelmed with creating and maintaining a budget. Budgeting becomes especially critical when someone's on a fixed income, like Social Security. Things can go awry pretty quickly when an unexpected bill comes along or when payments aren't applied correctly by a vendor. As payee, we keep track of all our payments that we make for our people, and we can easily check to see if payments have been made and if checks have been cashed by the vendor. When we create budgets with a new PFS participant, we explain how we prioritize our payments. And we always start with rent, since housing is the most important priority. We also make sure that there's always money for food. Other expenses related to housing, such as Excel or Denver Water, things like that, come next. Then medical expenses, such as medication copays, and maybe some old medical bills, things like that. So the key factor in any successful budget is establishing and maintaining a financial routine. For example, paying a bill when you receive it, rather than when it's due, virtually eliminates late fees, which allows more money for other obligations. This routine works especially well when income is received monthly, but it can easily work if you're receiving income weekly or biweekly. It's important to remember that sometimes implementing a budget can be difficult at first, especially when there's not a lot of wiggle room. But once you get into the groove of things, it quickly falls into place and you can see yourself saving some money. So prior to working at PFS, Whitney Goodwin worked as a case manager for MHCD. So Whitney, can you give us some insight on how a person decides having a payee would benefit their well-being?
Sure. Yeah. As a case manager, I had consumers who would be in the midst of managing their mental health and life in general. So oftentimes their finances would just become an added stressor in their life. So if a client expressed that they were needing help with managing their finances, or that they were being granted benefits but needed a payee in place first, I was able to introduce PFS to them as another service that's offered by the Mental Health Center of Denver. So to help a consumer apply to have MHCD as their payee, we would schedule an appointment to complete the application for payee-ship. We would also want to reach out to their psychiatrist or med provider for the physician's statement, and that just states whether or not the provider believes the consumer is capable of managing their benefits in a way that would be in their best interest. And then the last form is called an advanced notification of representative payment, and that form is signed by the consumer, stating that they understand that SSA has decided that a payee is needed at that time. Once those forms are complete, I would email that to Tabitha. She would send it on to Social Security. As the case manager, I would inform the consumer that it can take up to 90 days for a payee-ship to be granted to MHCD. So once that happens, the consumer and case manager are contacted by the advisor to go forward with a budget meeting. So during a budget meeting, the advisor, case manager, and person we serve go over the consumer's income versus expenses to determine what their individualized plan will look like. So I've found out that from working in the mental health field, we always stress to clients that mental and physical well-being go hand in hand and can really affect a person's life. And now that I'm at PFS, I'm able to see how financial well-being can play a huge part in their life and recovery as well. So having a payee is beneficial for clients that are currently overwhelmed by managing their mental health. The benefit of our department is that we help to pay their bills and keep them on track financially so that managing their money can be one less stressor in their life. So as a PFS advisor, we're able to work with and educate the people we serve to teach them how to manage their own finances in hopes of them becoming their own payee again.
We do encourage the people we serve to be involved in their finances and advocate for their own needs. For example, if we have a participant that wants to save for a big ticket item, PFS staff will adjust their budget and create new routines to meet that financial goal. We want people we serve to have a positive experience in their finances, and a big part of that is building rapport with each person and having them be as involved as possible in financial decisions. We also encourage people we serve to engage in good financial habits, which create less long-term debt. So for example, calling a company to formally cancel a service rather than just stopping payments will prevent accounts from going to collections and accruing service fees with a debt collector. It also keeps you in good standing with that company, so if you ever need or want their services in the future, you'll more easily be able to do that. Jane, can you tell us how you create positive working relationships with people on your caseload and with other MHCD staff?
Sure. Hi there, I'm Jane, one of the advisors here at the Personal Services Department, Personal Financial Services. I've been a customer service specialist for over 15 years. And in my experience, I've noticed that the foundation of any good relationship with anybody, especially when it comes to assisting with their personal finances, is quite simply communication. It's not only about phone calls, emails, or even a face-to-face communication with them, but what is said and how it's said. I think it's important to have both tact with the people that we serve and the members of the team throughout the organization. Oftentimes, being the third party, we're charged with managing funds for these clients. It kind of tends to breed a natural sense of less trust with the consumer, and it's a couple of reasons. It's either because they don't understand the process, or they've had a bad past experience with either an individual or a different organization. I think when one builds rapport, especially with a client, it's an unexpected way for them to feel connected, to be shown appreciation. And I think part of bringing my style, my sense of how I do things, and what I'm bringing to MHCD as an advisor is having the goal of becoming a source, a sense of stability, a sense of assurance to the client in their everyday, no matter what they're going through in their life at the moment. And I think it's important to us here at PFS to be transparent with them in how their finances are managed, breaking it down, clarifying anything about their funds, etc., any questions they may have. And I think as well, part of that clarification and support that we can give our client, it involves helping them understand the information in their own language, including providing translation and interpretation services between us, them, and the case manager, from the English language to Spanish in my case. And that's something that we do have available here at PFS. I believe being able to do this breaks down the barrier even more with the people that we serve. It helps them feel more settled, less burdened, and it tends to expand our ability to reach a larger part of the population and the individual consumers who really need our help. I believe that that's what's most important when interacting with clients on our caseload. And two, the culture of support at MHCD extends into how we each help each other in different ways. Oftentimes when a client will have a question about a topic that I'm not too familiar with, for example, I'm able to reach out knowing that we have the ability to help each other with our strengths, with what we're able to bring to the table, from how, for example, how supportive and a rock our supervisor is, and how she sees the best of us and encourages us every day, to how good another coworker is in urgent situations that can help us solve an issue quickly, which has happened before, and how we're able to consult with another advisor who's a former case manager who brings her experience and is invaluable to the work that we do. And so as a team, I do believe that sometimes we kind of help each other and bring each other back down to planet Earth sometimes. So for our colleagues and coworkers in general, I believe what really builds that relationship at work is to go above and beyond what is expected of us when we're interacting and working together with them to help the people that we serve. I think speed, the efficiency at which we respond to them and provide that feedback and information makes their job, their tasks easier and more enjoyable, because they're able to get the correct information to meet their deadlines and to be successful at their jobs. And that creates a well-rounded report one needs to be successful as a whole, as an institution here at MHCD. Tabitha?
Great, thank you. So about communication, it's important to keep communications with vendors. If you don't have a payee, you might get a phone call. For example, there are these companies that will say, oh, we can consolidate your student loans for a low monthly fee and all that stuff. Don't do that. You can do that with your student loan servicer for free. Not a lot of people know that, okay? So communicating with your vendors directly, sometimes you can get a better financial situation from that. You can consolidate your payments. You can get a lower interest rate on your credit card by just calling their customer service and talking to them. Keeping communication, whether you have a payee or whether you're your own payee or you're just managing your own finances. Just make sure you talk to people and be open and honest, and you can get the help that you need if you need help. It's important to remember, I say to myself, I can't be the first person that's ever gone through this. So someone must have done this before me. Take that to the vendors and say, listen, this is my situation. They've probably heard it before and they could probably help you. Okay. So Whitney, when you were a case manager, what was it like to interact with PFS? And how is it different now that you're on the other side?
With PFS being another department within MHCD, it makes it extremely easy for us as advisors to communicate with the case managers. When I was a case manager, I liked that we had a payee program within the organization, and I think our department is really important and unique. Just with everything that we can do, yes, we are very important. Because I worked for a prior community mental health center and they did not have a payee program. So the clients would either have to have a family member be their payee, or somebody random that they had never met before was appointed to be their payee, or they just had to do it on their own. And as we all know, money management is not always a strength for everybody, and that's why we're here. So that just became another stressor in their life. So the fact that our department exists, it was the first time I had heard of a payee program. within a mental health center. And so that was really cool. But yeah, with the people that we serve, they don't always have a family member or somebody that they know personally that can serve as their payee. So our department is beneficial to them. We're able to coordinate with the consumer, as often as they need. We also talk with their case manager, their therapist, their psychiatrist. We're all a team that works together to best serve that consumer. So the switch from case management to being a PFS advisor was a really good move for me. I still get to interact with the consumers. I always know what's going on with them. We're talking to the case managers. Communication is key, and it's one of the biggest things that we do that help our department run really smoothly. While we don't always see the consumers as often as a case manager would, I still feel like we're always connected to them because we are always talking to the case manager, and we do know what's going on with them. That's a big part of helping, serve them the best that we can and helping to meet their needs. So although PFS isn't a clinical piece to the consumer services, we essentially become another part of their team of people that are there to best serve them and help them progress toward their recovery and their financial independence. So with that being said, I think we're ready for the Q&A portion.
Yeah, so thank you all for that great presentation. We have a few questions that have come in. I'll just remind everyone that we have a form on our webpage to submit your questions. And I'm also being told that maybe the Q&A chat is back up. And so it might be possible for folks to submit questions in Teams Live itself. So we'll get started with some of the topics that you've already talked about that I'd be interested in hearing more about. And we had a question that came in around this too, is what are some financial management tips for those of us who aren't in the program?
Okay, definitely write it down. It's really easy to have an app on your phone and look at your checking account and, just kind of wing it from that. But there is nothing like writing everything down and seeing where it's going and where it's supposed to go. Way back in the 80s, we called it balancing our checkbook. You should do that. Write it down. Make sure that your payments are, what they are supposed to be. I will say that sometimes you want to sign up for a free trial. Free's never free, and they'll say, well, sign up and put your credit card number in here, but we're not going to charge you. You might forget to cancel and they might charge you. So one thing that I tell the people in our program, if you want to do that, I don't recommend, we have TrueLink cards. TrueLink cards are a way that some of our people receive their personal needs and food money. Maybe don't use your TrueLink card number for that. It's a Visa number. Maybe go get yourself a Visa gift card and load $10 on that and sign up for your free trial with that. That way, if they do charge you, you're only out $10 and you're not being charged over and over and over again because you forgot to cancel or the cancellation didn't go through, things like that. Just keep track. Try to keep track, keep a paper trail. Just make sure you have your record straight. That way, if a payment isn't applied properly, if you are missing something, you can go back and say, no, this went through on this date, here's my proof, and you can go from there on how to reconcile that issue.
One of the other things that you mentioned earlier is around student loans in particular and your credit card interest rate. So I really appreciated hearing, so I get those things in the mail all the time, refinance your student loans for one low monthly payment. And it's great to know that that's not the best idea. So you can always work with your servicer or your credit card company or whoever it is to negotiate a better rate.
Yeah, definitely. Do not consolidate student loans. That is a free service from the Department of Education. Just call your student loan servicer and they will work with you to get that accomplished. You don't need to pay anybody else to do that, ever.
Fantastic, that's great to know. Next question is, when somebody you work with, so somebody that we serve, feels ready to direct their own finances, how do they do that? Is there a transition or is there a hard cutoff when they leave the program?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is transition. We call it the 6-month program, and that is unique to MHCD. So what we do is every month we create a new budget. And we give our people more and more responsibility every month. So eventually, at the end of the 6 months, they're doing everything on their own. So for example, you might have a weekly budget where you're getting money for food every single week. Well, maybe the first month you'll get money every 2 weeks. So instead of getting, say, $50 a week, you'll get $100 every 2 weeks. And if you can make that work, then the following month you'll get $200 at the beginning of the month, and you make that last a month. And if you could do that, maybe you'll get your $200 plus your money for phone and Excel and all that other stuff, and it's a way to get used to the process again. And then at the end of that 6 months, they'll go to Social Security, with confidence that they can manage their own money. They're opening a bank account at that point, hopefully keeping track of everything and maintaining their budget. And, they get their own pay slip, and we see them every once in a while if they want to say hi.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like there's a lot of work in establishing a financial routine and a budget through that transition. And that's a perfect segue into our next question, which is, how does PFS establish a financial routine and a budget?
So when we have someone start with PFS, the first thing we do is we sit down and we create that budget. So we take we see how much we received for that person. And then we get the lease agreement for rent, see what the rent situation is, see if utilities and things like that are included, and then kind of figure out the bills from there. We prioritize by household bills like Excel, if there's a water payment, things like that. I would love to say Comcast is a utility. It's not a utility. That's entertainment, so that's prioritized last. But we make sure there's money for food and things like that. And if there's money for Comcast, that's great. We work that in there too. And we ask if there's any financial goals, if they want to move. We make sure there's money for a deposit, money going to savings for the deposit and things like that.
Great. Next question is, how do you work with case managers to help people create healthy financial habits? And I guess if I could add on to that question, how does this program fit in with the larger service array that we offer people?
Okay, so the advisors talk a lot with case managers. There is communication with case managers, like if we see something strange going on, if there's a lot of requests where there isn't usually a lot of requests, we might reach out to the case manager and ask some questions. Whitney, I think you have a really unique perspective on that relationship. So do you have anything to add to that?
I would just say that, we are constantly working with the case managers, especially during coronavirus. They are sending in check requests for the clients. It's nice to be able to check in with the case manager since they know the clients very well. So if we see something with the client that we're like, hey, we're not sure that they're doing very well, what have your interactions with them been like? I've had case managers email me and say, hey, has so-and-so used their debit card? I can't find them. And I'm, tell them what gas station they went to last, and we help find the client. So just being able to make those connections and check on the clients and make sure that they are doing their best, that's really important. So again, it's really awesome that we are a part of MHCD and that we have so many other people to connect with to best serve the clients.
Okay, and our last question, speaking of COVID-19, has this program been impacted by COVID-19?
So much. We've been impacted so much. Previous to COVID-19, we would have people we serve come in to see us every week to pick up their check. Now we can't really do that. We're not open. We're not letting people in the building. We have to use the U.S. mail to mail out checks to people who are still receiving checks. I mean, obviously we mail checks out to landlords and to pay bills and things like that, but we're relying on the post office more than ever for that kind of stuff. We do have people, like I mentioned earlier, that receive their food money on a TrueLink card, which is a Visa card. And that's really nice. We can load those online. They receive their money every week, just like they normally would. They can order things online, order food, groceries delivered to their homes and things like that. Definitely the checks were, mailing out the checks was a really big deal. I'm very proud to say, I'm very proud of my team that we really did not have any interruptions in service. We went from distributing checks face-to-face to sending them out in the mail in a week. We got everybody's address, we got all the checks mailed out. If people need emergency housing checks, if they're in a motel situation, they can still come to PFS, and we do still have staff there. So we can handle an emergency check and get people a housing check if they need it on the fly, absolutely. But as far as people coming in and having to go out during COVID, no, we'll just mail it right to your house until further notice. Hopefully people are more willing to come on board. I think they have with the TrueLink cards, because it is an easier process. You don't have to go to the bank to cash a check or anything like that. But yeah, I think we've been pretty well impacted by it, I would say.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I think that's all of the questions that we have. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much to Tabitha and to Whitney and to Jane for sharing with us about the Personal Financial Services Program and all of the incredible work that you all do to help the people we serve manage their financial lives. And I think there's some things that I've learned about how I can manage my financial life a little bit better, and I hope that everyone else has learned something too. Thank you all for joining us today for another episode of Wellbeing Live, hosted by the Mental Health Center Denver and Cigna. Make sure you go to our webpage to subscribe for updates on upcoming events and to see a recording of this event and to check out our past events. And with that, we'll say take care of yourselves this week, and we'll see you next time.